Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the early morning Sunday Westheights show, cooking edition. This is the show before the show where we give you all updates on all things Westheights. Now, I am so glad that you are here. This is a great day, and I am glad that if you are new, that you've decided to show up and join us here. If you are interested in more things Westheights, about what we are about and what is going on, there will be a link in the description below to our blog, and you'll find all sorts of wonderful information there. As well as you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, whatever you like. And those are just great places that we would love to connect with you as well. Now, today's episode is a very special one because not only do I have a couple announcements for you, but I also have one of my favorite recipes, and I'm going to be showing you that this morning. Now, the first announcement that I have for you guys today is for you senior highs out there. This is going to be an event coming up October 22nd, and this is going to be an in-person event. For those of you who have forgotten what those are events where you actually get out of your home, you go to a place and you hang out with a bunch of people, you have a great time, and then you go home and you talk about this event for years and years to come because it just blew your mind and how awesome it was. That's what in-person events are. And this is going to be for the senior highs on October 22nd, and that is all the information I have for you guys. If you would like more information regarding this event, be sure to contact Christina Main, and she will be able to fill you in on all of the details. Now, my second announcement is very important. This is regarding Halloween for Hunger. This is an awesome event that we do every year that helps gather and raise a lot of food for our local communities in the region. So we're looking for volunteers to hand out flyers. We're looking for volunteers to help gather and pack food when the day comes. And so if you are interested in maybe with a group of your family or a group of friends, or just as an individual would like to help out and hand out flyers, then we would be very happy to hear from you. And we have about 800 or so flyers that we need to hand out. So if you're interested in something like this or helping out or seeing what's the best way for you to help out, then definitely reach out to Christina Main, and she'll be able to give you all the information that you need and figure out what the best way is for you to help out when it comes to Halloween for Hunger. Basically, when it comes to these two announcements of the day, if you have any questions about anything I said, be sure to see Christina Main because she knows what's up. Now, of course, guys, I would not leave you hanging because I told you I would show you one of my favorite recipes, and I'm not going to let you down today. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get your favorite bowl. Then what you're going to do is you're going to go up into your cupboard. You're going to reach up, you're going to pull down your favorite bowl or your favorite flavor of early morning cereal. In this particular case, I have a brand that you all know, needs no introduction, comes in a lot of colors, and they all taste the same. So pour yourself, just when you think you've got enough, just give yourself a little bit more. Boom. Extra measure, you're going to need that sugar. Now, grab your handy dandy milk. Could be soy milk, cow milk, sheep milk, goat milk, oat milk, no milk, water milk, whatever kind of peanut milk you got or any other milk in between. Go in and grab it, and you're going to put just enough milk until you can see it. That's the perfect ratio, cereal to milk ratio. Some people say, oh, you don't want to see the milk. Some people say you want it to be drowning. Actually, no, nobody does that. Then what you're going to do, you're going to take your bowl, you're going to grab your favorite spoon, ergonomically hold it, plop it in there, and now that is a good bowl of cereal. And there you have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the early morning Sunday Westheights show. But before you go, I've got one more segment for you. A segment I like to call, whoa, that baby's got a lot of hair. Whoa, that baby's got a lot of hair. All right, guys, we'll see you next time.
Welcome, Westheights family. We are so glad that you are here with us today, regardless of where that here may be. It might be here in the sanctuary. It might be at home in your pajamas. Either way, we are very happy that you are joining us. So we have all spent the last 6 to 8 months trying to avoid the breath of others upon us, while also trying to conceal in our own breath. But there is the breath of one that we do want on us, and that is the breath of the Holy Spirit. It says in Job 32:8, but it is a spirit in a person, the breath of the Almighty, that gives them understanding. And in Job 33:4, the Spirit of God has made me. The breath of the Almighty gives me life. So let's begin this morning by welcoming the breath of heaven, the breath of the Holy Spirit upon us today. There is a shaking, let hearts awaken. Our God is moving, forever changing us. There is a trembling, there is revival, the sound of worship, so great and glorious. Holy Spirit, hear us now. Breathe on us, holy fire fall. Come and fill this place with your presence. Like a rushing wind, send your spirit here. Breath of heaven, breathe on us. Breath of heaven, breathe on us. There is a shaking, let hearts awaken. Our God is moving, forever changing us. There is a trembling, there is revival, the sound of worship, so great and glorious. Holy Spirit, hear us now. Breathe on us, holy fire fall. Come and fill this place with your presence. Like a rushing wind, send your spirit here. Breath of heaven, breathe on us. Breath of heaven, breathe on us. Come breathe on us. Come breathe on us. Come breathe on us. Lift up your hands and shout, the Lord is with us now. Lift up your voice and sing, He is holy. Lift up your hands and shout, the Lord is with us now. Lift up your voice and sing, He is holy. Lift up your hands and shout, the Lord is with us now. Lift up your voice and sing, He is holy. Lift up your hands and shout, the Lord is with us now. Lift up your voice and sing, He is holy. Breathe on us, holy fire fall. Come and fill this place with your presence. Like a rushing wind, send your spirit here. Breath of heaven, breathe on us. Breathe on us, holy fire fall. Come and fill this place with your presence. Like a rushing wind, send your spirit here. Breath of heaven, breathe on us. Breath of heaven, breathe on us. Come breathe on us. Come breathe on us. Come breathe on us. Oh, I've heard 1,000 stories of what they think you're like, but I've heard the tender whisper of love in the dead of night, and you tell me that you're pleased.
Well, good morning. My hope is that wherever you are right now and whenever you happen to be watching this service, that you are doing well. Thank you for joining us. Hey, you know, one of the things that we can do in a service on YouTube that maybe we can't do in person is we can talk during the service. I mean, yes, you could talk during the service when we meet in person, but then you're going to have somebody giving you the stink eye. But here we have this handy dandy chat, which I actually think is right around here somewhere. You can chat during the service, and some of us have made good use of that, saying hi or saying, oh, I never thought about that before. And so that's a great way of us interacting with each other. And so we're going to try something here right now. What I want you to do, if you are watching this live at Sunday at 10:30, type just hi and let us know who's watching the service with you. Just do that really quickly right now. The reality is that there's lots of us who are watching this service, and the strange thing is we don't often get to realize that we are doing this in community, despite the fact that we are set up all across the region, all across, there's people watching us in other parts of the world. And so this is just one small way that we can realize that we are not practicing our faith alone. And so, yeah, thanks for joining us again this morning. You know, way back in April, in one of our first online services, Brian was doing the welcome and announcements, and he made this joke.
Hello, Westheights family. Coming to you here from day 400 of quarantine, I think.
You know, at the time, we all chuckled. Why? Because, well, we were only a couple weeks into this whole COVID pandemic experience, and yet it felt so much longer, right? Well, here we are at month, 6, 7? Are we month 8? I don't even know anymore. And we are way past that joke that Brian made, and or at least we're getting close to. I don't even know, but we're like there. And things feel the same, don't they? You know, some things are different now than they were before, but in a lot of ways, we're still dealing with the same sense of uncertainty, and life is continuing to take getting used to. And just when we think we know what to expect, something changes, and we don't know what to expect anymore. And through all of this experience, the word pivot has been used to refer to the manner in which organizations and individuals and businesses have had to make sudden adjustments to the things that they've done, to the routines and the daily practices. They've had to pivot to adjust to a new reality. And really, it's a great word, but every time I hear the word pivot, I think about this clip from the TV show Friends. Let's just watch this quick.
Come on, Chandler. All right, okay. Here we go. All right, ready? Yeah. Turn. Okay. Turn. Turn. I don't think we can turn anymore.
I just don't think it's gonna fit.
Oh yeah, well, come on, up. Up. Yes. Here we go. Pivot. 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 Shut up. Shut up. Shut up.
You know, in this clip, Ross has just purchased a new couch, and he's trying to get it up a stairway with the help of some of his friends to get to his apartment. And it's clearly, the stairway is clearly too small for his couch. And he calls over and over again the word pivot, says pivot, pivot, pivot. It's kind of annoying, and you kind of get the response of his friends here. And the term pivot is an encouragement to keep trying, to keep turning, that hopefully they will find a way to get this couch up this staircase and to his apartment. Now, in our own time, to pivot is to work to adjust to a new reality. And you know, we've all had to do this. We might not have liked it. We might have complained a lot. We might still be complaining about it. But we are making changes to adjust to a new reality, this reality that we are experiencing. And you know what? We need to give ourselves credit for this. Even as a church, we've been forced to change many of the things that we do and how we do the things that we do so that we can continue to express our mission within the new reality that we all find ourselves in. But in all of this, let's just acknowledge that change is hard. it's almost always hard, and it can be painful, as old habits, as daily routines, as even our beliefs and our assumptions are jolted out of their places of comfort into new territory, into places that we've never experienced before. And even if we know that a change is necessary, even if we're anticipating it and we want it, change is often harder than we thought it would be. And so here's the reality that we're just naming. We're in a season of change. Some of it has been good. Some of it has been necessary. Lots of it has been uncomfortable, if not painful. And as much as we might want to do, we just can't deny that change is happening. If in fact it would be better if we embraced it, if we faced it head on. And as followers of Jesus, we believe that nothing, even though it might seem out of control for us, that nothing is out of control for God. That God is the God of order, the God who brings chaos under control, the one who calms the stormy sea. And so as followers of Jesus, we look to Jesus and we look to God as being the one who redeems our brokenness, the one who is at work in our story of, chaos. And so this morning we're going to look at a piece of Scripture, and we're looking at a piece of Scripture of people who are struggling with change and how God shows up in that change. Let's read our Scripture now.
Hello, Westheights Community Church. Today we're going to read from Exodus 16, 1 through 10. The whole Israelite community set out from Elim and came to the desert of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month after they had come out of Egypt. In the desert, the whole community grumbled against Moses and Aaron. The Israelites said to them, "If only we had died by the Lord's hand in Egypt. There we sat around pots of meat and ate all the food we wanted. But you have brought us out into the desert to starve this entire assembly to death." Then the Lord said to Moses, "I will rain down bread from heaven for you. The people are to go out each day and gather enough for that day. In this way, I will test them and see whether they will follow my instructions. On the sixth day, they are to prepare what they bring in, and that is to be twice as much as they gather on the other days." So Moses and Aaron said to all the Israelites, "In the evening you will know that it was the Lord who brought you out of Egypt, and in the morning you will see the glory of the Lord, because he has heard your grumbling against him. Who are we that you should grumble against us?" Moses also said, "You will know that it was the Lord when he gives you meat to eat in the evening and all the bread you want in the morning, because he has heard your grumbling against him. Who are we? You are not grumbling against us, but against the Lord." Then Moses told Aaron, "Say to the entire Israelite community, 'Come before the Lord, for he has heard your grumbling.'" While Aaron was speaking to the whole Israelite community, they looked towards the desert, and there was the glory of the Lord appearing in the cloud.
In this text, we have the Hebrew people on their way to Mount Sinai, where God will give them the Ten Commandments. And at this point, they've been in the desert for about a month, which we can imagine would wear on them. But it isn't so long that they wouldn't be able to remember what God has done for them recently. See, for generations, they had lived in Egypt and had been an enslaved people. They've been calling out for God to rescue them, and God had rescued them. In a very dramatic way, he'd led an entire nation's worth of people out from under the thumb, from underneath the control of Pharaoh, and he protected them from Pharaoh's army at the Red Sea. See, their prayer for change had been answered, but as we get to our text this morning, we understand that perhaps this change was not what they had envisioned. See, what they had wanted, what maybe all of us would have wanted, was the rescue without the pain of the desert. And this is understandable. It's very human. But rarely this is how change happens. And in this story, the Hebrew people are on a journey where they are being invited to not just accept God's help as a one-time gift, but to rather learn to rely on him in an ongoing relationship. Why? Well, because God's desire is to live with people like us. His desire is not just to be a magical force that does what we want when we want it, but ultimately it is God's desire that we discover what life is about, that we would discover the life that God has created us to enjoy, a life that has joy and fulfillment as a part of it. But this is a tough thing to keep in mind when things aren't going our way. When our understanding of our needs feels threatened. For the Hebrew people, it was hunger. It was their hunger that was driving them. And in just a few verses earlier, it was their thirst. And so they grumbled against Moses and against Aaron, the people who were leading them. And they accused them of bringing them out to the desert to die. And they wished that they were back in Egypt, because at least when they were back in Egypt, there they had food. The other day, as a family, we did a bit of a road trip, and one of the boys said, "Daddy, I'm hungry. Can I have a snack?" I mean, it was a simple request that flowed out of a very real need that he had, and it was communicated in a way that was welcome. It was communicated very well, very politely. Now, we can contrast this with the other times when the tone of that request is very different. When it comes across as needy and complaining and whining. And we understand that while the needs might be the same, that the attitude behind a request can be very different. You know, somewhere along the line, the Hebrew people started to be characterized by grumbling and complaining. Yes, they had real needs. You know, they were hungry and they were scared. These are very real needs. But in their hunger and their fear, they slipped into expressing themselves in a way that was selfish, in a way that was skeptical about God. You know, despite what they just experienced Him doing for them, they were doubting Him. And they had revised their past into something that they wished they could go back to. See, they seemed to forget what things were really like back then. Now, if you were to go back to the opening chapter of the book of Exodus, it talks about how the Egyptians made the decision to enslave the Hebrew people as a way of keeping them under control. They were afraid of them and they wanted to keep them under control, and so they decided to make them their slaves. And so they oppressed them by forcing them into labor, building cities and working in the fields. Exodus 1 verse 14 says that they were worked ruthlessly. And if that wasn't bad enough, there was an official policy to kill the baby boys that were born to the Hebrew people. See, the aim here was to exploit a whole race of people and to eventually kill them off. There isn't much here to sugarcoat. Yet because of the pain and the uncertainty that they were facing in the desert, some of these Hebrew people dared to say that they were better off in Egypt. You know, here's the thing about change. Sometimes the pain of change forces us to forget the reality of what needed to be changed in the first place. It can cause us to look back at our past and to remember only the good things, or to convince ourselves that things weren't as bad as we once perceived them to be. You know, someone who escapes an abusive relationship may start to wonder if things were really that bad, or, you know, maybe things could get better when faced with the uncertainty of having to start all over again. Or a recovering addict may look back fondly at the temporary highs and overlook the damage that they caused when their support network is failing them. Or we might find ourselves wishing we hadn't made that long-desired life change, you know, that move for the new job or that decision to go back to school, when now we are facing the reality of trying to make new friends and figuring out new routines, and that is really hard. I mean, change is hard. For the Hebrew people, the pain of change was making them question whether it was worthwhile. And it was causing them to lose sight of God. And what they needed was a fresh encounter with God. You know, sometimes I think we read the Old Testament as if God was different back then. And that by the time we get to the New Testament, especially the Jesus part, that somehow God had matured and He'd softened and He'd become more loving. Now let me say a couple things about this. First, if this is our perception, let me remind us that God does not change, and that Jesus is the full and the perfect understanding of who God is. He's the perfect expression of who God is. And so if our understanding of God doesn't match who we see in Jesus, then we need to engage in some work to help us reconcile that disparity. Second, while it's true that on face value, God in the Old Testament can sometimes come across a bit harsh, There are passages that point us to God's true character, and this passage is one of those times when what we see is God being merciful and compassionate and very much showing us that, or reminding us of who Jesus is. That God is gracious and compassionate and forgiving and understanding and is very patient. We might very well expect God to be frustrated or exasperated with these people. I mean, he had just rescued them from Egypt. He'd parted the Red Sea. And I mean, you could understand him saying, okay, guys, really? You guys really think I'm going to kill you here? That I did all that just to bring you out to the desert and let you die? You really think that? And so we might be waiting for God to respond accordingly and maybe say, okay, you guys are on your own, at least for a little bit, just to teach them a lesson or something. But instead, what we see God doing is leaning in. He recognizes the doubts and the fears and the lack of security that these people were experiencing. He recognizes that what they need in this moment is to learn more about who he is, that God is good, that God is trustworthy, that God will take care of them, that he is kind. And for those of us who know about Jesus, what we see God being like here is like the Jesus that we see in the Gospels. And so like Jesus feeds the 5,000, here God provides for the needs of his people. He provides a sort of bread in the morning called manna, and he provides meat in the evening. And through this provision of food, which by the way is the very thing that they were asking for, the very thing that they were complaining about, God is inviting them to learn to trust him, that God will provide for their daily needs. And if their daily needs are taken care of, what else can God do during the season of uncertainty and change? See, this provision of food was more than just about food, but it was about revealing God's character. Now, one thing that I know about myself is that it doesn't take long for me to shift from relying on God to relying on my own ingenuity and my own resources. But in the way that God provides for these people here, there's a safeguard against this. Now, what do I mean? Well, because, God says, I'm going to provide food each day, but you can't collect more than you need each day because it's going to go bad. And the reason for this is because, God wants them to truly understand what it means to trust him for their daily needs. And again, it's not just about food, it's about so much more than food. They need to trust that God will take care of them. And to not stockpile resources, which would be a natural temptation, or to try to get by on their own wisdom. And so God instructs them to only collect what they need for the day, because God would be there to provide what they needed for the next day. Now, for those of us facing uncertainty, it can be difficult to truly trust God. The temptation is that we need to figure it all out, that we need to rescue ourselves or determine our next steps. But here's the thing. While I fully believe that God has given us wisdom and he's given us the resources we have for a reason, far too often we rely on these things to get us through as if God is not present. Rather, Jesus, as he teaches us to pray, teaches us to look to God to provide for our daily needs. Jesus says, give us today our daily bread. That is to say, give us the things that we need for today and help us not to look too far in the future. Help us not to look too far down the line here, God. Help us to truly trust you. See, as followers of Jesus, this is to be the way that we go about life, always looking to God to be the one who's providing for us in whatever situation we find ourselves in. Now, as God tells Moses this good news about what he is going to do for them, he also tells them that there's going to be one day each week where the people should collect extra food because God will not be providing anything on the Sabbath. I mean, this is a test of their obedience. Will they do the thing that God is asking them to do? But it's also a demonstration of God's rhythm of life that he wants for his people. That as God will rest, he expects that his people will rest too. Now, we've talked a bunch this fall about rest, about the need for rest. But here again, we see it. Often in seasons of change, our temptation is just to plow through, just to go, to work harder, to do more. And unfortunately, the result can be burnout. But here we are reminded that God's pattern of life for us includes regular times of rest. And as we rest, we are invited to trust that God is leading us. Now, there's one last thing that God does in this passage that is ultimately about teaching his people who he is. And that is found in verse 10. Whereas Aaron is lecturing the crowd for their poor attitude, for the fact that they've been grumbling and complaining and telling them what God is going to do in response, we are told that God's glory shows up in a cloud in the desert off in the distance that the people are able to see. Now, in the book of Exodus, the image of a cloud is often used to depict God's presence with his people. God leads his people out of Egypt as a pillar of cloud by day. And at the end of Exodus, a cloud covers the place of worship and God's glory fills the tabernacle. And when they get to Mount Sinai, that is the place where God will give them the 10 Commandments, a cloud covers the top of that mountain as God meets Moses to give the 10 Commandments. See, the cloud is a sign of God's presence and God's provision. And here it is God showing up in a time of doubt and anxiety, that God is demonstrating to them that he is with them in all of this uncertainty. See, for the Hebrew people, the change in their situation was troubling. They are scared, they are worried, and what they want is they want certainty. I think these are emotions that we can all relate to. And God meets them in that moment. And like them this morning, I want to remind us that God is present with us in our moments of uncertainty and fear and in the season of change. That despite the fact that for many of us our world feels like it's upside down right now, that God has not left us and rather we are invited to trust him. Now, as I wrap up this morning, I want to make our application time an invitation to reflect, believing that reflection puts us in a position to experience God during this season of uncertainty. And so the first thing I want to suggest is that we acknowledge what has changed. Let's just again acknowledge, let's just name the reality that over the past 6 or 7 or 8 or how many ever months this has gone on, that a lot has changed. And so it can be a healthy thing to acknowledge what has changed, the things that we miss, the things that we don't miss, the new routines that we find ourselves in that have taken some adjustments to. It can be good for us to name the changes that are happening. For the Hebrew people, embedded in their grumbling was a grief of loss over certainty. Things might not have been good, but at least they knew what to expect. And so for many of us right now, we might be grieving over a loss of certainty. And so it might be good for us to be asking ourselves some questions. What is the most difficult change we've had to work through during this season? Or what is something that we miss? Now, I asked these questions to some of you a few weeks ago, and here are some of your replies. It has been difficult not having childcare options so that my husband and I can have a break. Spending more time with my children has brought to the surface my weaknesses. It has been tough to learn to do my job differently. It has been tough dealing with mental health challenges. It has been tough not being in control of my schedule. It has been so tough not being able to see my grandchildren. It's hard not to feel stressed when it feels like your livelihood, your health, and the health of the people you care about is being threatened. It has been difficult navigating the boundaries and the comfort levels that other people have with COVID. I miss going out to eat. I miss coffee shops. I miss travel. Hugs. I miss real, squishy hugs. Folks, life has not been normal and it has been tough. Let's name this and grieve it if necessary. Second, acknowledge what we have now that we didn't have before. For the Hebrew people, as much as the uncertainty of their situation was hard, things were better now. They were free, and the one who was leading them was benevolent. He wasn't somebody who was trying to exterminate them. But they needed to be reminded of this. For us, it is easy to get stuck in our places of loss and fear, and so it can be helpful for us to reflect on what do we have now that is good. And so going back to our little survey, I asked about what would be one thing that we wouldn't want to return back to normal, and here are some of the things that you said. A busy social schedule, lack of margin in my schedule, excessive busyness, having a jam-packed calendar. This theme came up over and over and over again, that suddenly we realize that we have time to breathe, that we aren't just always go, 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 and we don't want to go back to being go, go, go. I appreciate the respect being shown towards lower paid people who are keeping our country going. I don't want to go back to taking face-to-face interactions for granted. Over the past 6 months, I've gone deeper into a few relationships in contrast with spreading myself too thin. I've enjoyed spending time in shared neighborhood spaces. I've enjoyed more family time. I would hate to see my fear of trying new things come back. I've learned to stop and smell the roses. Now, lastly, reflect on what God is doing in our lives during this season. You know, we're going to get into this more in our next few messages in this series, the series that we're calling Pivot. But I want us to begin thinking about this if we haven't already. You know, through the cloud, the Hebrew people are invited to see that God is with them, that He has not abandoned them, that He's providing for them. And here's the thing, Jesus promises to His disciples that He's never going to leave them. And He promises that the Holy Spirit would be God's ongoing presence with them, even in moments of persecution. And so it's fitting for those of us who follow Jesus to be paying attention for how God is working in our lives, how He shows up in our uncertainty, and how He's enabling us to trust Him when trust is not easy to come by. Please join me in prayer. Lord Jesus, thank You for today. Thank You for the opportunity to gather like this. Lord, we recognize that in the season of uncertainty, that life hasn't been easy. That many of us are dealing with fear, anxiety, doubts, confusion. Lord, that we long for things that we enjoyed in the past, and we aren't sure when those things will return in the future. Lord, in these moments we ask that You would remind us of Your presence, that You would show us the things that we are learning, that we would see You. And Lord, for those things that we miss, for those things that aren't the same, may You comfort us as we grieve our losses, the loss of being able to be with our loved ones, those missed milestones, birthdays, anniversaries, holidays, those moments when we haven't been able to be with those who are sick and dying. Lord, would You be with us in our grief? Lord, as we look forward, we ask that we would anticipate You doing good things. Lord, that You would give us eyes to see You at work in our story. Lord, thank You for being with us, we pray. Amen. Well, thank you for joining us. We want to, again, invite you to join us in our virtual foyer. If you haven't joined us in this virtual foyer before, there's a link in the description of this video to something called a Zoom room. Click that. It'll take you there. The whole plan of this virtual foyer is there is no plan right now. Okay, just come, say hi, wave, stay for as long or as short as you want. Sometimes we talk about certain things, and other times we sit and stare at each other awkwardly, even, to be honest. But you know what? It's just an opportunity to really see each other and, again, to be connected, to experience connection. So thank you for joining us. Hope that you have a good Sunday and a good rest of the week. We'll talk to you next week. Oh, don't forget to sign up for Halloween for Hunger. We need your help.